Broadcasting live from California, get ready for an hour of pure, unapologetic conservative talk radio. Liberals beware, because this is the Wise Conservative Show.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I am your host, Connor Wise. Now, this past week has definitely been crazy. Of course, the protests, if you can call them that, in Charlottesville happened, and that's basically what I'm going to focus on for most of this episode, folks. I know you've probably heard a lot on the news, especially about Trump's response to this. I remember getting tons of notifications because I have all the different news apps on my phone. I remember getting notifications from CNN about every half hour saying that Donald Trump still hasn't condemned this hateful message that's being portrayed by white nationalists. And I get tons of those notifications. And this even happened after Donald Trump gave his statement. And if you actually listen to the statement, I will play it for you guys, part of that statement here in a few seconds. And he definitely condemned the actions that were going on in Charlottesville. And he specifically said that he condemned the bigotry, the hatred, the racism, and the violence, all of that. He specifically said that in his statement. He just said that it was from both sides. And that's perfectly fine. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, there was definitely both sides, the extremists on the right and extremists on the left there. And that's what caused all the different violence, because they were going head to head, fighting each other, attacking each other. And it wasn't a protest at that point. It was just a brawl. We've seen this in multiple areas before, but this was the one where there was mostly extremists on both sides. Most of the time it's more one-sided, but there was a lot of extremists from groups like Antifa there. Of course, the KKK was there. And so there was all of these different extremist groups from both sides of the spectrum, and it just wasn't going to turn out good from the beginning. Charlottesville was another reminder of the polarization that has been happening within our nation, and sort of the different divides that we've had, not only within the conservative movement, within the liberal, the leftist movement, and all of these different movements have kind of broken away from each other, formed their new, the alt-right, as a lot of them call it, the alt-left, as Trump coined for the extremists on the left. So yeah, there's violence on both sides here. So I'm going to play for you guys the statement, the original statement that President Trump gave the day of the attacks. Now, this was the very first day, the day of the attacks, that President Trump delivered this statement. And we still have people today saying that President Trump hasn't condemned what happened in Charlottesville. But take a listen. This is about a minute clip. Take a listen to President Trump.
But we're closely following the terrible events unfolding in Charlottesville, Virginia. We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides. It's been going on for a long time in our country. Not Donald Trump, not Barack Obama. This has been going on for a long, long time. It has no place in America. What is vital now is a swift restoration of law and order and the protection of innocent lives. No citizen should ever fear for their safety and security in our society, and no child should ever be afraid to go outside and play or be with their parents and have a good time.
So you clearly heard right there. President Donald Trump condemned the actions, and he said on both sides, and that's where the media is freaking out. That's where people are saying that no, he didn't condemn these racists on the right. He didn't condemn the KKK. He didn't condemn the alt-right. He didn't condemn the violence that was going on there. But in fact, he condemned more than most people are actually doing. We've seen this giant wave of hypocrisy happen since Charlottesville, and it's happened in the past. It just hasn't been as obvious. There's been this hypocrisy on the left and in the media where they want President Trump and they want everyone to condemn those violent racists on the right, but not condemn the same extremists that are on the left. They want us to ignore the fact that Antifa was there doing the same thing. They want us to ignore the fact that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, essentially. They want us to ignore all of those leftist groups that are extremist, that are divisive and polarizing. They want us to ignore them, but to condemn the groups on the right that are divisive and polarizing, that are extremists. There's been this hypocrisy where because President Trump condemned both sides of extremists, now he's being attacked. We've had CNN having days worth of news saying that President Trump doesn't condemn racism, that President Trump supports racism. And to this day, we have them coming out with notifications. I have a list here. There's a bunch of notifications. These 4 that I'm going to read to you guys are all from today. All of these are from today. Let's start with the first one today, 5:14 in the morning. Analysis, the president's failure. Donald Trump is who we thought he was. That person is the opposite of a leader, and that person is dangerous to this country's well-being. That's a notification from a news organization. The next one, inside Trump Tower. Trump is plunging forward without regret after his latest Charlottesville comments, a source says. His aides are, once again, privately upset. Then the next one. In an email to CNN's Wolf Blitzers, the former CIA director called Trump's comments blaming both sides in Charlottesville a, quote, national disgrace. And then the most recent one. It's rare for military leaders to speak at odds with the president. 5 Joint Chiefs have publicly condemned hate groups since Charlottesville. So I really want to focus on this last one here that I read to you guys. 5 Joint Chiefs have publicly condemned hate groups in Charlottesville, and they're saying that they're at odds with the president because of this. But didn't we just hear President Trump condemning hate groups? Here, I'll play it again for you guys.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides.
That seems like condemning hate groups to me. But here, they're trying to make it seem like these 5 Joint Chiefs who condemned the same hate groups were going at odds with President Trump. But we clearly heard that President Trump condemned it, and he condemned it again in his second press conference where he talked about it, when these reporters kept asking him questions about it. Because for some reason, they couldn't realize that President Trump actually did condemn this evil and this hate groups that happened in Charlottesville. They seem to forget that. They seem to forget that he actually did that. But it's because he blamed both sides, and I'm going to keep coming back to this, folks, because this is the big point here. It's because he blamed both the left and the right that they're freaking out. Because he pointed out the hate that is also on the left. And in my opinion, there's a lot more hate on the left than there is on the right, from what we've seen in the past couple years. From what we've seen from Black Lives Matters and more recently with Antifa, there is much more hate, much more riots, much more personal destruction that has happened from hate groups on the left than has happened in the past couple years from hate groups on the right. And that's a big deal, but the media ignores that, the left ignores that. Now, I listened to this interview, and I actually, I have it for you guys. It was by Waters, Jesse Waters on Fox News. It was Waters World. He interviewed an Antifa member from Boston. So I actually have that interview for you guys. I thought it was very interesting to kind of get that perspective from an Antifa member. And it really just shows kind of where this group went wrong, their mindset, and how hypocritical it is and how flawed it is. So take a listen to this. It's kind of disturbing the way that these Antifa members think.
Let me ask you something quickly, because you told this to our producer. You said, if violence is what it takes to bring about our goals, so be it. What do you mean by that?
Okay, you're kind of taking my words out of context there.
Well, what did you say?
Just a second now, you claimed that I'm promoting violence. We only want violence in self-defense from aggression by these racists and xenophobes that come and attack us at our peaceful protests.
Who's been attacking you guys?
Racists, mostly. They're racist.
Klan
fascist,
members have been attacking you guys?
right-wing Trump supporters. Klan
Okay.
members fall under that category.
Okay, so how do you know they're racist if they're Trump supporters?
Because Trump himself is racist. He started his campaign on racism.
Yeah, because
First
we're
thing
looking
he
at some
says-
video right now. I don't know if you can see it, but we don't see a lot of hand-to-hand comment. We just see a lot of your crew smashing windows and lighting things on fire. How is that self-defense?
No, I can't see any video. I just got a blank screen here.
Okay, well, you got to take my word for it. Are you familiar with the violent actions that your group has perpetrated?
You got to take my word for it. It is in self-defense against right-wing aggression.
Was it in self-defense when you firebombed a limousine during the inauguration?
Yes.
Okay, because the owner of the limousine is a Muslim immigrant. Were you aware of that?
Well, you know, a lot of violence committed by so-called Antifa members is actually committed by these right-wingers who basically seek to make us look bad.
Okay, so the Muslim immigrant who owned the limo that was firebombed was trying to make you look bad. How?
I don't think he's the one that firebombed it. It's these right-wing infiltrators. You see it all the time,
Oh,
all
okay.
over the internet.
So that
There's
wasn't
these
you guys.
so-called Antifa groups
Okay.
that have been
What about
made up
when
by
an Antifa
right-wing
member
infiltrators.
stabbed a police horse in the neck with a knife? Was the horse a racist Trump supporter?
Yes. So the horse,
I didn't know horses
Is-
could vote.
you see, the horse is a tool of the police, and
Yeah.
the police, under the Trump administration, have been increasingly intolerant, militarized, racist, and xenophobic. You see it all the time. There have been so many cases of unarmed black men and women, our fellow POCs, that have been attacked, shot, and killed
Okay.
by these racist policemen
Okay.
and policewomen under the Trump administration.
Okay.
They kill
I think the
unarmed
police
black
are
police-
actually trying to protect the safety of the citizens that you guys are causing mayhem in front of, but that's besides the point. Why can't you guys peacefully protest like Gandhi or Martin Luther King?
You see, we do peacefully protest. In the case of Martin Luther King,
Not from what I see on the video, but go ahead.
when they were attacked, they certainly defended themselves. When Martin Luther King was shot and assassinated, he
Well, I'm not comparing you to Martin Luther King. I was just saying maybe you should try to adopt some of their tactics. What is your goal, your bottom line goal?
our goal, I like to keep it plain and simple. I like to say we want to smash the fash. And
So violence
by
is
that
your
I mean
goal.
all types of fascism, racism.
Okay, who's the fascist?
Mainly these right-wingers who attack us. They are all over the internet these days, and they've been emboldened by this administration to show their faces in real life
Okay,
and come
so-
attack us.
So you guys
and
are like
call
a
out-
self-defense group. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
So you hear there this Antifa member, all the violence he blames on either self-defense, which I didn't realize these random buildings around Berkeley and other cities were attacking them. They blame it on self-defense, or they say that these aren't real Antifa members and they're right-wingers disguised as Antifa members. You can hear how crazy the entire movement really is. And so when President Trump was condemning both sides in Charlottesville, he was condemning Antifa too. But the liberal media didn't want that. The leftist media doesn't want you to condemn Antifa because they think that Antifa is a legitimate, peaceful organization. But you can hear clearly just from that interview, they're not peaceful. They want violence. They label all Trump supporters as racist. They label our president himself as a racist. I mean, they don't have any evidence to support that, but they continue to call him a racist. They continue to expose, as they would say, all Trump supporters as racist, but that's not what's happening. They're just attacking people randomly. They're just burning cities. That's what they do. And I mean, we see the similar The similar thing happened with Black Lives Matter. They, of course, were very divisive in their nature. Their protests were just as violent, and they called for the death of cops as well. So there's extremism on both sides. And just to prove that, here's a chant. I'm sure I've played this for you guys before. This was from a while ago. But this is a chant that Black Lives Matters did, calling for dead cops. Take a listen. If you couldn't really hear that, because I know it's kind of hard to hear, it was recorded from a person way up in a building. They're chanting, "What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now." And this is exactly what our president condemned. This is exactly what we have always been condemning. This violent rhetoric that extremists on the left have been saying. But when President Trump condemns that, it's not good. You see, when President Trump condemned both sides, he exposed Antifa, he exposed Black Lives Matters, and the very biased media can't accept that. And they're going to continue to attack him over this. They're going to continue to say that he didn't condemn the racists because he didn't call them out by name. But there's so many groups on both sides that are extreme that he didn't need to name every single one because there's too many. There's more than I'm even saying here. There's so many of these racist extremist groups on both sides of the aisle. And someone who actually cares about this nation wouldn't be playing identity politics here, wouldn't be playing these different petty games like the media does, like these liberals and Democrats do, and like a lot of CEOs have been doing, which I'll get to in the next segment. They would be actually looking at the fact that there is a lot of divided groups in America. There's a lot of polarization, and there's extremism on both sides of the aisle. And they would be condemning both sides, just like our president did. They would be condemning both those who are extreme on the right and those who are extreme on the left. I'm going to take a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. This is the Wise Conservative Show. Hey everybody, Connor Wise here with an exclusive sneak peek of the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. With universal health care, which is essentially the next step beyond Obamacare, this is where Democrats want to take the country. This is where the left wants us to go. With universal health care, now there's no insurance companies, no one competing whatsoever, and the government controls it all.
Calling all young conservatives. Have you ever wanted to write for an online publication? What about host your own conservative radio program? Now you can, thanks to youthrevolt.org. Youth Revolt is a conservative media network for young people, the goal of which is to educate our fellow Americans, and also to expose the left-wing indoctrination that goes on in classrooms across the country. Become part of a team that is dedicated to taking the country back, one radio program or opinion column at a time. If you're interested, go to youthrevolt.org and click on Join Us on the top of the page. Fill out our brief questionnaire, and one of our representatives will be in touch with you in no time at all. The time to reclaim our future is now. Be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and join the movement today. Youth Revolt. Speak without fear. My friends, I'm going to be blunt with you. There are a lot of frauds out there today. People who claim to be conservatives and yet, in one way or another, believe that more government is the solution to our problems. That's not what conservatism is about, and even more than that, that's not what our Constitution is about. I'm Jason Veely, a recent college grad who has the guts to say what needs to be said without pulling any punches. On my radio show, you can expect 100% pure conservatism every single weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Join me as we discuss history, liberty, and conservative philosophy in a style that is just as entertaining as it is educational. Who says we can't have fun tearing down the liberal establishment? Tune in to the Jason Veely program live every weeknight at 7 o'clock on youthrevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
America is known for its expansive wilderness for all to explore, and for many, that exploration is an important hobby. This exploration is why the Survivalist was created. On this blog, you will find expansive information on all things wilderness, from what knife you should carry to what backpack gives you the best bang for your buck. This group of 4 writers has created a very diversified and useful site, which I personally recommend. The site has given me much knowledge on a variety of topics, and I urge you to check it out at the-survivalist.weebly.com. Once again, that is the-survivalist.weebly.com.
I was assuming that it meant coverage, but if he says that there's a small group of people who understood what it was, so I'm like, what is it? What is confetti?
It gets 2 scoops. You know, everyone else around the table gets 1, and no word if there were sprinkles.
He paid $38 million, looks like $38 million in taxes.
Are you tired of listening to the snowflake liberal media report about ice cream scoops and typos instead of real facts? Well, at the Wise Conservative Show, we promise you that we will not report about Kofifi, but instead about the truth, instead about the facts about what's going on in our nation. Join us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Wise Conservative Show for your dose of unapologetic conservative talk radio. The Wise Conservative Show, only on Youth Revolt. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I'm your host, Connor Wise. Now, we probably all heard, I'm sure you guys heard this, Donald Trump tweeted out today that he's shutting down 2 of his jobs councils. And there's definitely a reason for that. And this is definitely connected to my last segment here. But yeah, so he tweeted out today, quote, rather than putting pressure on the business people of the Manufacturing Council and Strategy and Policy Forum, I am ending both. Thank you all. Now, if you didn't hear, there was a number of CEOs that were in these councils that decided to resign over President Trump, and this is them, this is what they said, over President Trump not condemning what happened in Charlottesville. These people are following what CNN said, what MSNBC said, that President Trump didn't condemn this. But once again, aren't you guys sure that he did condemn it? I mean, I heard it, you heard it. Everyone who actually listened to President Trump's speech heard it. And, well, I'm pretty sure he did condemn the violence that happened.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides.
Yeah, that's him condemning it. That's right. But however, a lot of these CEOs, they didn't listen to what President Trump actually said, and they caved to what the leftist media said. They caved to what this very biased group of people was reporting. These CEOs, they didn't care about what was best for America, but they cared about what was best for their image in the news. And in terms of CNN and MSNBC, if they didn't resign, suddenly they're racist, suddenly they're bigoted, suddenly they support the alt-right. Because according to CNN, if you support our president and him condemning both sides of violence, you're racist, bigoted, and you support the KKK. Because that's what's happened since Charlottesville. If you support our president, you're now a racist bigot who supports the KKK. And these CEOs couldn't have that. So they left Donald Trump's council without actually looking at the facts. They left it. And so now President Trump had to shut down both of these councils, which were doing a lot to help out the nation. But, of course, he had to shut it down because there's no one left in it, basically. There was, I think, about 9 CEOs that left because of this. A lot of these CEOs, they didn't actually, give too much of a statement as to why they were leaving. If you saw, one that did go viral, it was the 3M CEO, and he gave a long statement. He gave this huge statement about sustainability, diversity, and inclusion, and he said that the past few months provided him an opportunity to reflect upon his commitment to those values. And so then after President Trump, this is what he's saying here. After President Trump didn't condemn the alt-right, didn't condemn the violence in Charlottesville, he said that he couldn't stay in his council anymore for the Manufacturing Jobs Initiative. He couldn't stay in it anymore because it wasn't reflecting his values, because it didn't condemn all that violence. Folks, this is just another time when the left in this nation is ignoring facts. This is another time when the left in this nation are actually being more hateful and more divisive than us, and they're claiming that we're the ones who are doing that. They're claiming that the right is the one who's being hateful and divisive here. But it's actually the left that is doing that. They find every little time that they can to say that conservatives are all racist, to group every single conservative together into a group of racists and bigots. They're not the tolerant ones. They're the racist ones. You see, in conservatism, you don't look at people as black or white. You look at people as Americans. That's what conservatism is all about. Equality, egalitarianism. That's what conservatism is about. But then you look at this progressive movement in America, the leftists in America, and they divide everyone up into special interest groups on race. You have Black Lives Matters. That's obviously a racist terrorist organization if you look at what they've done. You have Antifa, who's trying to just attack anyone who's white as a racist, even though most of them are white themselves. And you see the Democratic Party itself dividing these voters up into race. With the DNC email leak, we saw them labeling different voting groups as, well, Latino voters as Taco Bowl voters, saying that they're very loyal, so we have to get their vote, and all of these other racist remarks. If you look into history at the party that has been racist, it's not the Republican Party, folks. It's the Democratic Party. It was the Democrats who opposed abolishing slavery. It was the Democrats who created the KKK. It was the Democrats who created Jim Crow laws. It was the Democrats who, to today, try and keep everyone divided based on race. They're the ones who already have tried to enact more racist policies, such as affirmative action and all these different things of today. They're the ones that are racist. And I guess I should delve into affirmative action here, since I did bring that up. They're the ones that support this program that I do believe is very racist. What it does is, if you are a person of color, it lifts you up above the average white person trying to get into college. So you have a fast track, basically. And so now it basically creates these quotas that colleges have to follow, where they have to have a certain number of each race. That's racist in my mind. Having to divide up how many students you have based on race. See, Democrats have been supporting these racist policies for years, for centuries. Ever since it was created. Ever since Jackson created the Democrats, they have been racist. Ever since the Republican Party was created, we have been the party of freedom, of equality, of not looking at you as a certain race, but looking at you as an American. Abraham Lincoln was, of course, a very famous Republican, and he fought to end slavery. We have all of these different people who fought for equality. Martin Luther King Jr., he was a Republican. These huge civil rights movement activists, they were all Republican. It's because the Republican Party and the conservative movement itself supports equality. The conservative movement itself does not support this divisiveness, this polarization that the Democrats and liberals within our nation continually spout out. But you have these events such as Charlottesville happen. You have these events happen and they blame conservatives. But then when something like Ferguson happened, those riots, they didn't blame liberals. They blamed police officers and conservatives for stoking that fire. You have the riots in Berkeley happen. They didn't blame the Antifa people. They blamed the Trump supporters that were attacked. You see, we can't win when it comes to this. You conservatives can't win. It doesn't matter if we're actually in the right here. It doesn't matter if we're actually trying to protect history, which is what happened at this, what was originally supposed to be what this protest was about, protecting history. We can't win, though, because every time we try and protect history, every time we try and protect equality, Democrats come in and they riot, they attack us, they protest, and we can't get anything. You see, Democrats want us to completely erase history. They want us to change history. And that's for a reason. If you listen to what I just said about all of in the history, it was Republicans who have supported equality. It was Republicans who have supported actually helping people. That's why Democrats want to erase history. That's why these leftists wanted to erase history. Because if you actually look at history, it was Democrats who were racist. It was Democrats who were doing all of these egregious acts, not Republicans. So they're trying to erase that history. They're tearing down statues, vandalizing the Lincoln Memorial, all these different things. We see Antifa, we see Black Lives Matters, we see just Democrats in general wanting to tear down all of these different Confederate statues. They say that they represented racism, they represented slavery, and we should tear them down. While definitely no one, or at least not the majority of Americans, we don't support slavery. Slavery hasn't been a thing since the Civil War. That's the 1800s, folks. Slavery has not been a thing in America for centuries. But they have to focus on that for some reason. And they're trying to tear down statues because of it. They're trying to erase history because of it. Yeah, the Confederacy did support slavery, and that's not a good thing. But it's a part of our history. You can't erase history. If you erase history, I'm going to go with the famous quote here. You're going to be doomed to repeat it. We're going to be doomed to repeat history if they continue to tear down these statues, they continue to erase history. It's not a good thing. Yet they continue to try and do it. They continue to erase this history. And every time conservatives try and protect that history, they are deemed as racist. Every time conservatives try and protect a statue, a statue of history here, they're deemed as racist, as bigots, as these white nationalists. Now, there definitely were white nationalists at Charlottesville. I'm just talking in general here. In general, even if you're a normal, everyday conservative, you're not a part of any extremist group, you're just a normal Republican, a normal conservative. If you say that we should keep our history, they will look at you and they will call you a racist. They will call you a bigot. They will say that you support slavery. But these are the same people that think we should still have reparations, that the white race, again, Democrats dividing us up by race here, that the white race should pay reparations even today because of slavery that happened in the 1800s. These are groups such as Black Lives Matters, Antifa, all of these groups that are extremists, but they're calling for different races to do all of these things. They're dividing us up, polarizing our nation more. You see, when you look at the violence that happens in America, there's not one group to blame. But you can definitely see how the left has continually stoked that fire of polarization. Yeah, there's people on the right to blame too. But recently, it's been the left that has been doing it. It's been the left that has been majorly dividing this nation. They've been the ones who have been driving people to extremism. And they've been encouraging people to join these groups, these extremist groups. I mean, now you have people toppling Confederate statues in North Carolina. I mean, you have college-aged people doing this. People in their early 20s were arrested for toppling a Confederate statue in North Carolina. These are college-age kids who don't know any better because they've been brainwashed their entire lives to think that they have to erase history. To think that anything that represents the past should be taken away. There's people who are now fighting for the Gettysburg Memorial, for all of the statues and the Confederate stuff there to be taken down. For all of the memorials for the soldiers from the Confederacy there to be taken down. There's people who are urging every single thing that mentions the Confederacy to be erased. You see, these people, they've been brainwashed by the liberal movement. And that's what's really happened here, because they've been brought up through our education system that has so many of these leftists within it. There's so many of these leftists that have told them our history is racist, that have told them we should change our history, we should change the past. And so they're brought up through this, and they don't know anything else. They've never heard a conservative viewpoint. They've never actually listened to one. And so they're brainwashed into thinking that they need to topple these statues, brainwashed into thinking that they need to erase our history. It's this liberal indoctrination within our school system, folks. It's affecting our entire nation. It's affecting our history. And it's increasing the polarization within our nation. All right, I'm going to take one last commercial break. Don't go anywhere. This is the Wise Conservative Show. Hey, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive sneak peek of the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. What it means to be a conservative is very simple. It means that you want to protect freedoms and liberties. You want to protect the Constitution and limit the government. It's a very simple definition. It's a very simple cause to follow. And this is what a lot of people do kind of value conservatism as.
Ever wanted to learn the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in less than 10 minutes? Are you looking for the truth about the so-called gender wage gap? Well, my friends, I'll let you in on a little secret. Prager University is a source that I use all the time when preparing for my show, the Jason Veely Program. Dennis Prager and his team have put together a remarkable organization that seeks to explain and spread Americanism through the power of the internet. Their short yet extremely informative videos reach more than 100 million people per year, and they want to reach you as well. Go on YouTube and type in Prager University, or go to prageru.com for all of their latest content. That's Prager, the letter U.com. prageru.com.
Hey everybody, Connor Wise here with an exclusive sneak peek of the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. With universal health care, which is essentially the next step beyond Obamacare, this is where Democrats want to take the country. This is where the left wants us to go. With universal health care, now there's no insurance companies, no one competing whatsoever, and the government controls it all. Have you ever wanted to stand up to your liberal professor? Have you ever wanted to help expand the conservative movement? Well, it sounds like you would be a perfect fit for Youth Revolt. Youth Revolt is a team of dedicated young conservatives fighting liberal indoctrination within our school system. If you're interested in being a part of this team by being a columnist or even hosting your own radio show, go ahead and click the Join Now tab at the top of youthrevolt.org. You'll be asked to answer a few questions, and a Youth Revolt team member will respond to you quickly. Be a part of something bigger than you. Be a part of Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Get out of here, you idiot. Sorry about that, folks. Jason Veely here, host of the Jason Veely program. I'm a 22-year-old conservative who is fired up and ticked off at the direction the progressive left have taken this country. Join me every weeknight at 7 o'clock as we promote liberty, advance conservative principle, and work to restore the Constitution of the United States. I can get loud and I can get passionate. How can we afford not to when so much is on the line? Tune in to the Jason Veely program, live every weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on youthrevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
I was assuming that it meant coverage, but if he says that there's a small group of people who understood what it was, so I'm like, what is it? What is confetti?
It gets 2 scoops. Everyone around the table gets 1, and no word if there were sprinkles.
He paid $38 million, looks like $38 million in taxes.
Are you tired of listening to the snowflake liberal media report about ice cream scoops and typos instead of real facts? Well, at the Wise Conservative Show, we promise you that we will not report about Kofifi, but instead about the truth. Instead, about the facts about what's going on in our nation. Join us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Wise Conservative Show for your dose of unapologetic conservative talk radio. The Wise Conservative Show, only on Youth Revolt. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I'm your host, Connor Wise. Now, so we have seen a lot of backlash, and I know I've talked about this the whole episode, but now we're going into kind of within the GOP, okay? So there's been backlash across the entire nation because of what President Trump said. I don't think I need to play it for you guys again, but President Trump clearly condemned the evil, okay? Well, we have people even on the Republican side, within the Republican Party, who are saying that President Trump didn't do enough. We have, like, Representative Steve Stivers here saying, quote, "I don't understand what's so hard about this. White supremacists and neo-Nazis are evil and shouldn't be defended." Now, he's trying to allege that President Trump defended these people. And then it goes on. It goes on to something even worse. Our Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. Now, if you guys have listened to my show very long, you know I'm not a fan of Paul Ryan. Well, he came out and tweeted, quote, "We must be clear. White supremacy is repulsive. The bigotry is counter to all this country stands for. There can be no moral ambiguity." And again, these people, they've aimed all of these tweets at our president. And we've seen, now this is 2 people within the House of Representatives here who have basically attacked Donald Trump for it. Now, Orrin Hatch of Utah and Marco Rubio of Florida, they're among the first people among the GOP to question Trump's initial statements. And today, they tweeted that it was time to re-up their criticism. Rubio tweeted, quote, "Very important for the nation to hear POTUS describe events in Charlottesville for what they are, a terror attack by white supremacists." Well, he did call that out, but Marco Rubio wasn't listening. Cory Gardner, a Republican from Colorado, he's among the most outspoken Trump critics from this past week. He tweeted, quote, "My answer will never change on this issue. We must all call evil by its name and never back down from denouncing hate and racism." All of these people within the GOP, they're fallen into the same trap that the CEOs fell into. They've fallen into the same trap that a lot of people on the left have fallen into. Not listening to our own president. They've fallen into... They're trying to be politically correct here. You see, this is what political correctness has actually done to our nation. And this is definitely political correctness that is being pushed through by the liberal media here. Because it's not politically correct to agree with President Trump right now. So we have these representatives and senators disagreeing with him. It's not politically correct to condemn both sides of the hate. It's politically correct to condemn only the right. So we have Paul Ryan, we have Marco Rubio, we have these representatives and senators condemning the right but not the left. If you actually ask people that were there in Charlottesville, if you ask them who was there protesting, who was there coming for a fight, and they'll say that there was people from Antifa, they'll say that there was people from the KKK, but it's not just from one side. If you notice, every time there's one of these protests, people are actually showing up to protests with weapons already. People are showing up, mostly Antifa members. They're showing up in these all-black clothes with face masks on so that you can't identify them, with these giant sticks and stuff like that so that they can beat people. We saw it in Berkeley. We saw it in Charlottesville. These groups have come ready to fight. And it's not just those on the right. It's Antifa, it's the KKK, it's Black Lives Matters, it's all of these groups. But we have people within the GOP, and these are people that I've never been a fan of. These are people who I deem as rhinos or Republicans in name only. I don't see them as true conservatives. And that's for one simple reason. They bend their beliefs what political correctness wants them to bend them to. They don't defend our liberties very well. They don't defend what we stand for very well. Especially Paul Ryan here. Paul Ryan, day after day, has different viewpoints on everything. And we see him constantly attacking our own president. And this is why our Congress can't get anything done, because within the GOP, we have these establishment Republicans who don't agree with the conservatism that the majority of the Republicans agree with. And so they kind of hijack the leadership, they hijack the party through that way. And this is why, even with Obamacare, we didn't get real bills pushed through. And this is why, with our budgets, it's always way too much being spent on policies that conservatives and Republicans shouldn't be spending money on. It's because of these establishment people. And this is why a lot of these hate groups, such as Antifa and Black Lives Matter, get away with what they're doing. Because even within the conservative movement, we have people who aren't willing to call them out. Within the conservative movement, we even have people who don't want to blame anything on Antifa. And it's sad that we've gotten to the point where even our own party members are bending to political correctness, just so that they might be able to get another term in Congress. That's what's happened here, and because of the very biased news media, anything that's basically liberal and progressive is what's politically correct. So you see these people that are now bending to that. You see these so-called Republicans bending to that will and attacking our own president, even though, as we've all heard multiple times on this episode, he clearly condemned what happened in Charlottesville. And I think that President Trump, once again, is being unfairly attacked. Unfairly attacked by the news media. Unfairly attacked by people on the left. And unfairly attacked by our own party. President Trump did nothing wrong here. President Trump actually did better than most people because he condemned every single one of these groups that was violent. He condemned all of the hatred, all of the bigotry, all of the violence. And that's much better than singling out only one of those groups because it covers all of that bigotry and violence, all of the hatred that has been happening in these riots across the nation. He was the one that was actually in the right here. But sadly, the news media, the leftists, and even some in our own party don't agree. All right, that's all for today's episode of The Wise Conservative Show. I'm your host, Connor Wise. You can find me on youthrevolt.org. You can find me on Spreaker.com/The Wise Conservative Show. Instagram.com @the_wise_conservative. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. And as always, God bless.